Hi, astrology babes. Welcome to my channel. I'm Brianna, and this is Water Trine Baby. This is the first video that I make, so I'm going to briefly talk about some of the expectations that I have for this channel and some of the goals. To start with, I am going to be reflecting on astrological placements and how they have played out in my life. I want to treat this channel like a journal. But eventually, I want to move into having some fun and looking at artists, public figures, or celebrities that I find interesting and inspiring, and see how certain astrological placements have played in either their personal life or their work. I also want to move into doing tarot readings. I've done tarot since I was 15, and that's something that I really, really enjoy doing. Okay, so I want to jump immediately into the topic for today, which is Saturn return in Pisces and what that's been like for me. Before I start going too deep into what it's been like, I do want to point out some of the details of this placement in my natal birth chart because I would like for you to see how it might be different from yours. And, hopefully, if you resonate with some of the things that I say, or if you find that there's been moments that I've talked about something and it was a little bit different for you, please comment down below and tell me how so because I can also learn from your experience too. In my birth chart, when I use Placidus, Saturn's in the sixth house, but it's like barely in the sixth house. It's in the descendant line. Like it's like touching it. I think it's like 19 degrees. I'm not looking at my birth chart right now. I'm just talking um from memory, right? So when I switch to whole signs, Saturn is very much in the middle of the seventh house. I am a Virgo rising, so keep that in mind. Saturn is also creating a challenge in how I perceive myself and how others perceive me in the world when they first meet me. Saturn is in mutual reception with Neptune, which I'm sure many others have that in common. Neptune and Saturn are both generational planets. If you were born in the same year as me, I'm not entirely sure how long Neptune stays in one sign, but most likely we both have mutual reception between Neptune and Saturn. So what I mean by mutual reception is that Neptune, which is the planet that belongs to Pisces essentially, in my natal birth chart is under Capricorn, which is a sign that is mostly associated with Saturn. So there's that. So those two planets kind of like switched identities. And because they switched identities, they see each other and they recognize each other, which creates a kind of like mutual receptivity. Additionally to the mutual reception that these two planets are forming, they're also in a sextile. Saturn also forms a trine, hence the name of my channel, Water Trine Baby. So Saturn takes a part of a grand water kite in my natal birth chart, forming a trine with the moon and forming a trine with Mars. It's also squaring Jupiter. This is a placement that I'm still trying to understand, but I think it mostly played out in my childhood. I am half Puerto Rican, half Hawaiian. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. So there was a little bit of a treatment of me being different growing up. And I think that's where Sagittarius comes in. So I always felt this need to expand away from my home. And lastly, and this is probably the most important, I was born during a Saturn retrograde. So if you're also going through your Saturn return, your experience might be a little bit more external than what it was for me. My journey has been an internal journey. I've definitely have had to push away people to differentiate, okay, those are your emotions, these are mine. And if you're not going to give me the space to talk about my emotions, then you got to stay over there because I'm not bringing in that into the next chapter and the next phase of my life. The light looks different, but so be it. By the time I was able to fix the technological issue, the sunset, and here we are. But the topic is the same. Let's go. What are the lessons of Saturn and Pisces? Well, basically, for me, because it plays out in the seventh and the sixth house, one of the hardest things that I've had to deal with is removing myself from the enmeshment of other people. And Saturn is going to make you let go of some of the old roles that don't fit you anymore. For me, the role that doesn't fit me anymore is that expectation of being the mediator in my family, that expectation that I'm going to stay quiet and back down just to keep the peace. I'm a Libra, so it was a role that I fell into naturally. But I've now realized like this is a role that is creating a unhealthy dynamic. It does really affect my self-esteem and my self-worth. And I've really, really have tried, especially in this moment of my life where, to give you some context, I got engaged. And it's a very normal thing to happen during your Saturn return is to get engaged or married. But in my case, it's brought to the surface insecurities from other people that I wasn't expecting. People that should be supporting me and loving me no matter what have actually felt threatened by this change. And I don't really know the psychology or the reasons why this is happening. But I really know that some of the things that I've said have been completely taken out of context. In me putting myself in a place of power and saying no, I've had to deal with the backlash because for the most part, that especially this family member that I'm talking about and I have been talking about in this video, they're not used to me saying no. They're just not. It's not a normal thing. They're used to me keeping the peace. But like what is peace if I'm not feeling peaceful on the inside? And I've been trying to communicate this year to certain people that some of the ways that they behave or the things that they say create anxiety and it just doesn't make me feel good. And from saying that, I've only been attacked. I literally just said, like, on a Wednesday morning at 7 in the morning, I don't want to feel harassed with 35 messages in a row. And this person continues to give excuses for that behavior instead of listening to me and taking it seriously and changing the behavior. As a consequence, because they're not actually respecting the fact that I don't like that, I've had to push them away, but I wanna get to a point where they look at me as an adult and not as a 15-year-old. And I wanna get to a point where they actually come to the realization that I'm not playing the same role anymore. And it's been extremely hard because every time I ask to talk about it, every time I try to sit across from them and have a difficult conversation, I'm not giving the space to do so. So Saturn is playing out in that way with Pisces. It's like Pisces is a sign that lacks boundary, and Saturn is wanting to create the boundaries within Pisces. It's almost like building a house for the fish to swim in safely. And in this case, I've been trying to do that with some people so I can feel safe and secure within the relationship. And it's sadly, I haven't gotten to a point where I feel like I've been able to communicate this in a way where I feel respected. I feel like these people just expect me to accept a apology and then continue like nothing happened. And I'm not there. I'm not there. So it's been tricky to navigate relationships during this return. On the other hand, my relationship to my partner has grown deeper and he's become such an important person in my life. Like the toxic traits, expectations of others, and the way that I actually want to be perceived is something that I've been, bumping against. And people, especially this person, has made me feel crazy and shifted the blame to me when it's completely unnecessary. When someone tells you that you have demons in your head, you got to think for a second, like, why is this person saying this to me? Especially someone that knows how spiritual I am. It really feels like a disrespect to my character. And I can tell that their intention is genuinely to hurt me. So I've had to protect myself. And in protecting myself, I've had to seek help. And because of that, I've had to think about what I do in my day to day life so I don't internalize these things and these words that I'm hearing, which is such an interesting interplay between whole signs and Placidus and how the relationship is affecting the daily routine. But moving on from relationships and the effect of the houses, I want to talk more about the sign of Pisces because I feel like this is where, as a collective, generational collective, um, we can have things in common. And it's like, this has been a very spiritual year for me in a way that's been different from previous years. Like, I've always been spiritual. And just like every year, I've always had challenges. I've gone through difficult things throughout my 20s, but the return is different in the sense where I've had enough and it's time for people to wake up and see me for who I am. And that includes myself, seeing like actually looking at myself and reflecting on who I am and thinking to myself, okay, like what am I comfortable with and what am I not comfortable with? So it's been an ongoing process. And have incorporated really spiritual things to understand this, like meditating in the mornings, becoming a lot more introspective, removing myself from this pressure of achieving success in my career has been another big one because I had a lot of big plans this year. And from the very beginning, this year was telling me that that's not what it was going to be like. So I had to let go of like, oh, this year I'm going to be successful and I'm going to, I moved to LA and I'm going to make my dreams come true. No. Um so one of the first spiritual signs that I got this year was a mantis on my door. And if you like spirit animals, then you are going to relate to this. But as soon as I saw the mantis on my door, it became extremely obvious to me that this year was going to be about stillness and it was not going to be about velocity, which was a bummer. I was like, oh God, I wanted this to be the year where I pick my bags up and I move, or like I grab the bull by its horns. But no, it's been a year of introspection, journaling, meditating, therapy, doing art not from a place of being ambitious, but from a place of like getting back in touch with myself. I started doing pottery and I it was a very healing thing to start incorporating into my art. I'm a multidisciplinary artist, but a lot of the work that I do is digital, and there was a shift this year of wanting to move away from the digital and more with the tangible. And the tangible healing the emotional end of things and slowing down and feeling the flow rather than fighting to be something that I'm not. Because this year has been so emotionally charged, especially like understanding enmeshment and myself as an individual versus my role in relationships, I also like finally did things that I've been wanting to do for years. And I didn't think that I was doing this for the return. It just happened. And then after the fact that I did it, I realized, oh, interesting. Yeah, yeah, this is a very spiritual experience and I'm going through my Saturn return. That's right. I feel like I'm becoming a parent to myself. I'm being a lot more soft to myself. I'm putting myself in a place of power by telling people what I'm not okay with, and if they don't get it, I can remove myself from the situation. But at the same time, I'm not holding anger or hate towards them. It's like it's really beautiful. It's actually very, very beautiful. And I think that's been the major lesson of Saturn and Pisces. Now, obviously, I'm still in the midst of it and I would like to get to a place where, the people that I'm having a lot of conflict with, that we can find some kind of compromise. But I do need from them to be accountable, and I don't know if that's going to be possible. But I am very aware right now that life is so unique and so, short, that I don't want to waste my time in relationships that are superficial. And I want to feel like in the relationships that are really important in my life, I can be vulnerable and I have a safe space to talk. And lastly, like I've built a relationship to astrology this year that's a lot more deep than what it used to be. I've realized that astrology can actually pinpoint talents, and it has been a confirmation of things that I had already been doing. And now it's like, okay, in my natal birth chart, I have a lot of placements in the third house indicating that, I'm meant to be a storyteller. And now it's about embracing it and embodying these things. So that's something that I realized with having Saturn return in Pisces is like, who am I? How am I gonna embody who I am and how I'm gonna be okay with some people not liking the things that I'm portraying and embodying and being okay with that. I want to be fully expressive and accomplish the goals that align with myself. Thank you for listening. I hope this resonated with you. If it did, please tell me how. If you disagree with some of the things that I said, tell me how. And if you like the conversation that I'm starting and this approach that I have to healing, please like and subscribe. I'm just looking for a friend out there that thinks like me. Thank you.